Now, imagine you're a kid in the 80s. You wake up at a ridiculous time to go to school and you sit there for several hours listening to some teacher yap and yap for 50 minutes straight. The bells ring, you pack your stuff, go home, maybe do some homework or study and stuff, and then you go to your mom and you ask for some money to hit up the arcade. She tells you how much money you waste on arcades every single year and tries to lecture you on how games are bad for you, but you don't really care, you just want to meet up with friends and play endless games and hang out. You reach the arcade and you get up to a machine and play, and you play and play and play, and you keep failing over and over and over again, and then it hits you. You come to a realization. This is fucking boring. You just repeat the same shit over and over again, even though you just know the game is specifically made to be so mind-blowingly impossible to beat, just so you can spend more money on it. And you've been doing stuff like that for years. For hours at a time, and even if you do want to play something different, something like with an end where you don't want to invest money just to die, you can't, because you don't even know what console to buy, and even if you do decide to get one, where do you get the money? You leave and rarely ever come back. You weren't the only one thinking like that. Everyone did. Now let's get real here. Back in 1983, something called the video game crash happened. You see, back in the day, gaming was so mind-blowingly different than what it is today. I mean, back in the day, arcades were everything. It was huge business. People would just continuously spend their money on arcades and fill the coin boxes every single day. There were lines in front of the arcades because of how many people wanted to play video games. It was insane. It was the golden era. But it didn't last very long. You see, game philosophy back in the day was very simple. Just make the game as hard as you can. Make it so bullshit that you cannot ever pass certain levels. Why? Because video games are addicting. They just knew people would continuously waste money just to fail over and over and over again. And that earns a shit ton of money. It didn't matter whether the game was good or not. They just had to pump out more and more games, and all people would do is just eat it all up and give them money. Well, guess what? Be playing that fucking stupid, and this shit didn't last forever. There's a few reasons as to why the game industry crashed back then. First off, home consoles were fucking pointless. You had about 5 million consoles doing the same shit, and the prices were just absurd. For example, let's look at the most popular console at the time, the Atari VCS, or 2600 as it's more well known that way. Now, this thing back in the day cost around $200. Pretty good price, right? But when you take inflation as a factor too, it's $600! Jesus fucking Christ! I mean, 600! Really? Really? $600? That's not the only thing that was absolutely absurd with price. Games were. Games were about $20 to $30. You know, good price. But again, add inflation to the mix and suddenly it costs $90! What? $90 for this? For this? What the fuck? That isn't all, because not only was all that shit expensive, but also, as I said, game manufacturers just kept pumping games regardless of quality because they knew it was gonna sell, and guess what? Most Atari games were shit. One stands out in particular called E.T. because it was regarded as the worst game of all time, but it was actually just mid-fodder used to gain money. Well, people just knew. They knew that Atari games were obsolete. They were bad. And on top of all that, home consoles and home play was so goddamn expensive. Again, $600 in the horrible overpriced games with it. But not only that, people were also slowly starting to switch to PC. Atari's sales were plummeting pretty damn fast. Stores were closing in and out, and the publishers were going bankrupt because of all the untouched cartridges being returned from stores. All the other consoles riding the Atari wave have pretty much died out. It seemed as if games are dying out, and the newspaper claimed the video game boom is over. Now, imagine you're that kid again, now a grown adult. You've graduated school, you work in an office building, and you haven't played much games after that enlightenment you received as a kid. Still, you go back home to visit your parents and stay there for a few days. You go and have a high school reunion with your friends, and you go visit the arcade for old time's sake. Your expectations are at an all-time low. You pay with your money this time and stand in front of the machine, and what stands in front of you seems different. You boot it up, and you start the game, and suddenly, it's something you've never seen before. Something new. something refreshing, something unreal, something different. Enter Mario. After Atari crashed the entire gaming industry into the fucking ground and buried it under 7 different layers of concrete, Nintendo comes in and they're like, no. Check this out! Boom, NES. Mario was something so radically different at the time. First off, a tutorial. Yes, you've heard me right. The stuff we take for granted today was something that was rarely, if ever, seen before in video games. World 1-1 teaches you the basics of the game. You can jump. You get hurt if you run into enemies. If you hit blocks, you can get coins and stuff called power-ups. The mushroom gives you one more hit before dying. Flower gives you fireballs. You fall into a pit, you die. It's so simple, yet such a new thing at the time. At the start of the level, you're given this free space to get used to the controls, to see where you need to go, which the game immediately tells you. Right. The pipes show you how the AI moves. If it hits a wall, it will go back. Just move right and you'll hit your goal eventually. To us today, that seems obvious and stuff, but back in the day, this shit was virtually unheard of. Let's look at the best-selling game before Mario, Pitfall, released just 2 years before Mario. As you can see, not the most exciting experience. In just that 5-second clip, you can just firmly state what a superior game Mario is. It had no competition. It was unrivaled, new, and unbeatable. It had a story too. A fucking story. You have an objective in a video game. It's very simple, yes, but this was the start of modern storytelling in video games, as funny as that might seem to us today. Not to mention the music. Oh my fucking god! How do you make something sound so good in 8-bit? How do you do that? It quite literally integrated music as a key aspect in video game design, and you know, music is a huge part of games today, and also you can control your jumps. You can jump and then go left or right, or maybe even charge up your jump or make a quick skip in place. Oh my god, it was something never seen before. It played better than anything ever made before, and it was simply said, better than anything ever made beforehand. But the most important part, it was for the NES, a home console. And it was $150, which is roughly $420 today, which is, you know, not such a horrible price for a console. Hell, you've got consoles and packages today that cost $500. Not only was the NES relatively easily accessible, it just played, looked, and worked better than any console beforehand. The MMC chip in the console made it just so much superior to anything ever seen before in the gaming market. And it's probably the reason why the NES stayed in the industry for so long as the top dog. And Mario was the NES game. Sure, you got Mario for the arcades too, but the real experience was the console version. The game wasn't so mind-blowingly hard as some of the arcade titles at the time were. The game gets more challenging the more you play and progress the game. If you fail, you go all the way back, yes. Unless you know the trick. But the more you play, the better you get. You learn more and more about the levels with each run, and then you reach a point where you can speedrun the levels, or maybe you learn about the warp pipes and make it a lot easier on yourself to reach the level you failed at previously. And the best part of all, the game has an ending. You actually rescue the princess at the end and you can genuinely reach a story ending. That too was just incredible at the time. Mario's population skyrocketed. It was insane. In Japan, every 5th household had the Famicom. In US, all the Toys R Us stores just kept selling Mario, and all the calls they ever received was all just about Mario or the NES. It was wild. There was a poll back in the day where more kids recognized Mario than Mickey fucking Mouse. Mario was unstoppable, and he had single-handedly revived not only the gaming industry, but put home consoles back in the market once again. Mario also changed the public perception of games back in the day, as they were previously cited as violent or inappropriate. Mario was different, because unlike the games that came before him, he had a soul. He had an identity. So naturally, after the success of Mario, a sequel was on its way, and so in 1986, Super Mario Bros. 2 was released. The Japanese version, that is. But that game was the first ever troll game to be released. It had such bullshit difficulty, and then they realized that people like to win in video games. So they were like, okay, what now? We can't release this overseas. Oh, just make a new game. What? No, we can't. We literally just finished this one and we gotta work on the next game. Okay, just take this platform we made earlier and turn it into Mario. What? Just do it. Trust me, man, it'll work. And work it did. Basically, what Nintendo did for the US sequel was take a different Japanese platformer they made called Doki Doki Panic and remade it a bit to be Mario 2. Then they released it to the US and said, here you go, Mario 2, don't like it? Well, fuck you! We made this. Because it's basically a reskin game, this entry in the series has some weird stuff going on. First off, no Bowser, instead it's a giant toad named Wart. What the fuck? Second, every time you finish a level, you enter an eagle's mouth. What the fuck? Third, no Goombas or Koopas, you fight Shy Boys, Bob-ombs and Birdos, and which all became staples in the Mario universe. Fourth, you don't step on them to kill them. Instead, you pick up plants from the ground and throw them at them. What the fuck, man? It was very different than the previous game. It looked very different, although better. Mario and Luigi got their significant colors in this game, so that's pretty nice. And plus, the game has a nice ending where the differences in the game kinda make sense. You got multiple characters, each with their own abilities, strengths, and weaknesses, which allows you to choose how you want to play the game. This game also has a lot of vertical levels unlike the original, where instead of going right, you go up into the clouds or maybe down underground, which was very interesting and new. The platforming was much better in this game, jumps were much easier to pull off, and it had pretty well designed levels. It's to this day a nice experience, although when we compare it to anything else in the series today, it certainly has its own identity. It was different. It is different, but nonetheless, it was a Mario game. Still, was it really necessary to do all this? I mean, the Japanese release couldn't have been that bad, right? No! It was that bad! You had poison mushrooms, warp pipes that made you regress. In some areas you had to find secrets just to progress the goddamn game. Some levels had a wind mechanic that made it impossible to jump. The levels were designed with such malicious intent to make you hang yourself in a span of minutes. And when you think you've beaten it, the game goes, well, you gotta beat this hellhole 8 fucking times to really finish it. This game was for the masochists who mastered the original and were looking for a bigger challenge or just more Mario in general, but even they didn't like it. The game felt as it was a ROM hack. It looked and played exactly the same as the original, except in this game, you had to have pitch-perfect timing to make some of the jumps, and let me tell ya, you can't have pitch-perfect jumps, because this was the early NES era. The jumps were imprecise and wonky. It worked for the original, yes, but not for this one. You gotta keep in mind, the video game industry was still recovering back then, and if Nintendo released this game overseas, it would just kill video games again, because it was just a troll game. The US version of Mario 2 was much more accessible and actually fun to play. So, you know, overseas, Mario 2 was a damn good game. It sold 10 million copies worldwide, and it was the third best-selling NES game. But what about Japan? Because, you know, they still got a ROM hack as a sequel, and a painful one at that. Not only that, but other licensees got their projects starting like Castlevania or Mega Man. Hell, even Sega was pushing their Alex Kidd character. So, what do you do when you have an army of Mario-hungry fans waiting for new Mario content, and when you see other companies trying to dethrone you? Well, you start making the ultimate sequel. Super Mario Bros. 3 is widely regarded as one of the best platformers of all time. Whenever you see a Mario tier list, you always see Mario 3 pop up at least in the top 5, and while this game certainly isn't my personal favorite, please don't murder me for that, it sure is an amazing video game. I mean, first off, the graphics. Ooh, it's gotta be some of the best looking NES games out there. I mean, compare this game to the first game, and hell, even the second game. It looks way better in comparison, and back in the day, this was huge. The game was colorful, yet the sprite animations were just so beautiful back then. You had these themed levels, and these were pretty cool back in the day, which leads us into reason number 2, the world map. You could choose what levels you wanted to play, and that gave you a sense of freedom. Not to mention, you have yet again multiple playable characters with their own characteristics, so all in all, the game gave you a sense of freedom. Although, very limited, but it was there. You also have these great toad houses and slot machines, you got the memory matches and stuff, and it was just a really nice addition to the world. Third, it was a challenging game, but it never gets too difficult. It was all very balanced with excellent level design and had a great difficulty curve. It introduced the Koopalings and there was a boss at the end of every world and that was just so refreshing to see. But the fourth and most important reason for its huge success, it took the original SMB formula and upgraded it to such an amazing extent. Don't get me wrong, Mario 2 US was great, but it definitely was very different compared to the original game. But this game was a lot more similar to the original. It took what the original did well and improved on it, while simultaneously fixing all the stuff that were bad about it too. I mean, first off, Bowser's back in the game, baby. That's enough to me. Then you got the classic power-ups back, but you also have some very new interesting ones like the Super Leaf or the Tanuki suits or maybe the Hammer power-up, or you got the Shoe Mario, you got Frog Mario making water levels actually playable and fun to an extent. You got P-Wing for whatever reason. I mean, if you're really sick of a level, use it, but that's just cheating to me. Not only that, you have a storage system for your power-ups. The classic step on a guy's head to kill him is back. It also retained elements of game design from Mario 2 with the levels being both horizontal and vertical. It also, for whatever reason, started a trend of auto-scrolling levels. I don't know how the person who came up with this didn't get fired. It took an already established and loved formula and took it to the fucking moon. It's one of the most beloved games of all time for a good reason. The difference between this game and the previous two, or three if you count the troll one, was that you can actually play Mario 3 today and say, wow, this is a great game, unlike the other two. When looking at SMB, its controls and physics are fucking janky. Half the time you don't know if you're gonna make the jump because it's just so hard to control. You can't go left in that game, only right. There's a lot of outdated jank there. Mario 2 is better in that regard, but it's the hell jank that could have been done better. But Mario 3? It might have some jank, because, you know, it's still an old game, but it definitely plays damn well, even today. It's a timeless game, and don't even get me started on the music. My god! It's gotta have some of the best NES music out there. The game was a phenomenon. To people back then, this was the next-gen game. On day one of its release, it was sold out in almost every single store. Nintendo couldn't make the game fast enough, and all the calls stores ever received were about Nintendo and Mario. It was insane. People were on a Mario frenzy. This game was very influential for games to come. Hell, people loved it so much, a group of fans made an entire PC port of it and shown it to Nintendo for approval. Nintendo was impressed, but they didn't accept the offer. There was no surprises there. But they didn't care. A year later they made their own studio and made Doom and Wolfenstein. Again, some of the most influential games of all time. Mario 3 shook the world. Its gameplay, its soundtrack, its world, they all give the game its iconic identity. Mario 3 was the best game anyone has ever seen. Mario 3 proved that video games aren't just a fad. They are here to stay. So how do you make something even better than the best game of all time? Well, it didn't take long to find out. Ah, my favorite 2D game ever. If you could not tell by now, this is, in my opinion, the best 2D game Mario has to offer. I know I'll get flack for being on the Mario World camp, but it's simply the better game to me. You see, around the time Mario 3 was supposed to come out, the Famicom era was coming to an end. Its sales were dropping and the competition was starting to arise. First off, PC systems were starting to slowly take off, but the PC wasn't as much of a problem as Sega was. You see, Sega was about to launch the Mega Drive, the first 16-bit console, and hell, it could do more than play games by having a modem, a printer, and a bunch of other stuff with it. So Nintendo was like, alright, hold your horses. Boom, the SNES. The SNES was an improvement over the NES in every single way. First off, it was 16-bit. The original NES had 56 colors, this one had 32,000. It had a sound chip that wasn't built into the CPU and was simply a lot more powerful. It had stereo output and 8 audio channels instead of the old 5 and mono sound. It was an improvement in every way. The resolution was higher, hell, even the controller was better, and with such an improvement in hardware, Mario got the chance to evolve and grow. And he did just that. Super Mario World was 2D Mario at its absolute best. Right off the bat, this game looks fantastic. The sprite work really shows off how big of a hardware improvement SNES had over the NES. You got these big, detailed sprites in all types of colors. It was incredible. The sprite animations were also incredible. Every time you finish a level, Mario will do this cool peace sign animation telling you, wow, great job, and I fucking love that. Or when Mario dies, he has this expression on his face as he falls down. It's small things like this that make you appreciate a game more. The moving backdrop added so much depth to the level. They all felt and looked so better than the previous games. The levels looked so better because of the amount of colors the SNES allowed. It's crazy how big of a difference it makes. On top of that, Mario has never felt better to control than in this game. Hell, you go back now and play the first 4 games and compare the movement. To me, the movement is nailed perfectly in this game. Mario's the most responsive he's ever been, and the addition of Yoshi only makes it better. Yoshi is such a joy to control and use. He is just so fun to use and can do so many things. First off, he can eat enemies but also get hard to reach items. He can walk over hard terrain. He can make Mario jump higher. There are so many things Yoshi could do. I see people criticize this game for its lack of power-ups, but why would you need them? In my opinion, there were way too many power-ups in the last game. Not only that, you could just endlessly stack them in your inventory, so you pretty much never run out. It makes the difficulty of the game a lot less consistent, especially with how OP some of the power-ups are. But in this game, it's back to the classics. The Shroom, the Fire Flower, the Starman, and some new and very fun to use ones like the Feather or the Balloon. And on top of all that, I don't really see why you would need many power-ups. Yoshi himself is really enough. He can spew fire, he can ground pound, he can fly, he can gobble stuff up, increase your timer, walk through terrain, gives you an extra life, etc. The point is the game doesn't need a million power-ups to be fun. On top of all that, you've got 74 masterfully designed levels. I don't know if Nintendo was on crack while making them, but each and every single level is a joy to play. You got these pipe cannons and these one-up rooms and game rooms that are such a nice addition when they aren't plastered on every corner of the map. Mario can climb fences in this game. I mean, come on, if that isn't a deal maker, then I don't know what is. Not only that, but Nintendo added some of the most iconic Mario enemies for the first time here, namely Magic Koopas, Wigglers, and Blargs. It also has the Koopalings as boss fights, but I like them way more in this game than in 3. The Ghost Houses first make their appearance in this game. There's also new types of blocks in these games which really help with diversifying the gameplay, and the music just keeps on improving. In this game, it's the best music you can ever hear anywhere. I mean, Koji Kondo just went fucking insane. The extra 3 audio channels and the stereo sound made this game sounds so much better than the previous ones, and he utilized this to the very end, and you can see that. Like, the soundtrack of this game is such a nice thing to just listen to. All of this was nice, but we haven't even reached the best part of this game. The world. I mean, it's literally called Super Mario World, and the world is immaculate. You know, the world map in Mario 3 was such a nice addition? Well, it added some freedom, but again, the game was linear in its progression pretty much. The freedom was there, but it was very limited and small. Now, World goes, what if we skyrocketed the freedom aspect and make the player play with the world map like it's a board game? And holy fucking shit, it worked like a charm. This game is such a joy to explore. You can do the basic do levels till you reach Bowser strategy, or you could play the game the way it was intended to be played. Find every single secret. Seriously, if you've played this game and have never 100% completion on it, turn off the video and go boot up Super Mario World right now and do exactly that. Now, I don't want to say that's the intended way to play this game, but I'm saying that. It's a whole new experience. You can find so many secret exits and so many different secrets in all of these 74 levels, and they add such depth to the game that it's incredible. The game gives you clear indications whether the level has a secret or not. If it's red marked, it does. Go get it. You can find so many secret paths, levels, or maybe even paths to other worlds too, and that's what I love about this game. Interconnectivity. After unlocking some of these secrets, you'll stumble across the special world Star Road that connects all the worlds in one place and also gives you another special world inside of it. I love that the worlds are all connected in this way. The interconnectivity is such a nice touch, and it just adds so much to the world of this game, and I just love it so much. Seriously, if you're not 100% in this game, please go and do so as soon as possible. It's truly the best way to experience all the amazing things this game has to offer. The key part of this game, and why I love it so much, why I think it's the best 2D game, is freedom. And well, freedom is gonna play a huge part in, you know, the future of Nintendo. But having the freedom to explore different worlds at a different pace adds so much to this game. I love that it's not a classic linear experience, it's different. the interconnectivity, the freedom, it all adds up to this game's unique identity. But Flower Man, what about the difficulty? This game is easy. Well, you see, Miyamoto has put these vanished blocks around the map. Now, you can activate them for them to, exist again, to make your adventure easier. You can do this by going to the Switch Palaces located in various parts of the world. Now, it's not a coincidence that Miyamoto has included these. If you cry about the difficulty of this game, then don't touch the Switch Palaces. Do it the hard way. Personally, World was harder than Mario 3. In Mario 3, I would rarely ever die. I think I always finished the game with about 20 lives left. It wasn't a hard experience whatsoever, so I don't see how the criticism holds up. But hey, maybe I'm just good. Hell, let's say that Mario World is easier than Mario 3. Let's say that Mario 3 is a harder game. I would still like World more. It's just that World never went for difficulty. They went for fun over infuriating challenges. And don't get me wrong, I love challenges in video games. FromSoft games are my favorite games of all time, and I wouldn't be playing Mario if it wasn't for the challenge, but Mario World did this approach of fun over challenge really well. And I just love it. It made this game so easily accessible to a wider range of audiences. Today I hear the question Mario 3 or Mario World. The answer doesn't really matter, as they're both stellar games, and we should be thankful that we have access to them both, but I usually hear the answer Mario 3, and as for the reasoning, it was way more next-gen or groundbreaking. But I didn't ask which game was more groundbreaking, I asked which one was better. Mario 3 might have been revolutionary, but Mario World was evolutionary. And believe me, it doesn't fall short on the revolutionary side of things either. I love Mario World. I love it to death, and its idea of freedom certainly would be very crucial for Nintendo's new revolutionary product. Nintendo saved video games. It saved the industry as we know it, but it also revamped it. Mario did something new. Mario was something next-gen at the time, and because of him, we have gaming as we know it today. It was when Mario appeared that game developers realized they can turn video games into an art form. It was something special. Something new. It doesn't matter which game is better, and there is no right answer. We should be thankful that we have these games today as they are. They all have their own identity, their own soul, and their own jank and their own greatness. But alas, the 90s were slowly coming to an end, and a new era of video games was visible at the horizon. So what now, Nintendo? What do you do when you have to change the dimension you create your games in? Well, you do what you did the first time. Shape the industry once more. Well guys, that was it for this video. This is the first part of a two-part video that I'm doing on Mario. I originally wanted to talk about 2D and 3D Mario games in the same video, but I figured that it will be way too long of a video, and it also just didn't fit with the thematic of this video in my opinion, so I'm leaving the 3D games for the next video, which should be relatively soon. I know I've been inactive for a while now, but yeah, I've been working on this one huge project for months, and at this point, it's so frustrating because I don't even know if it will ever come out, and I'm stressing out. I put my fucking Flowerussi into this. I'm going insane. I can't. Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna come out soon, but if it does, it's gonna have to suffer some huge changes, which will probably ruin the video. I'm still figuring out what to do with that video. As you can see, I actually made an outro screen. It's pretty bad, but hey, I don't know how to draw, and I also think it's better than just having a random image at the end of each video. Still, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for the support on my other videos. We hit 200 subs, and we're approaching 300, and that's just insane. So many people. Like, that seems like a small number, but really, 200 people listening to you and your videos and how you rant about shit or just talk about shit. It's incredible. If you enjoyed what you just watched, leave a like, maybe share with some friends, and if you wish to give me feedback, just leave a comment. I always read all of them, and it really helps me. Thank you guys for watching, and see you guys in a bit. Peace.